Well, there's a trend in Europe and the UK and Ireland at the moment for pension funds particularly and particularly defined benefit pension funds, to put together the various aspects of professional help that they tend to get when they're managing the investments of their pension funds. The traditional model was that the actuary figured out the funding requirement. The investment consultant put together an investment plan at a high level, at a strategic level with the pension fund trustees, and then investment managers were hired to implement that and generate the investment returns. And I suppose the trend is that trustees are now giving all or nearly all of that job to one house, and that's what investment outsourcing consists of. Just to flesh it out a little bit, because there are a number of complicated terms used in this business. Sometimes you hear the expression fiduciary management. In fact, that was the original term, and it's the one that's probably most commonly used in the UK to describe this. Fiduciary management is generally the fuller service, where everything other than setting the risk objective is done by this provider, and the trustees simply do the initial bit of the job, which is setting the risk assessment, the risk objective, and then leave it to the provider to do all the investment work. I have a little problem with the term fiduciary management, because it seems to imply that the fiduciary responsibility of the trustees is taken off the table, and of course it can't be. But a lot of the governance effort is taken off the table by it. You have another term then, which is implemented consulting, which is used a lot here in Ireland, and clearly that's used by consultants to describe what they do, and typically that would involve the trustees retaining a lot of the work at the beginning, setting up the plan for the scheme and devising an investment strategy with their consultants. Once that's set, then the consultant, the implemented consultant, if you like, takes it away and does the investment job on it. It's hard to get exact figures on it, but it's clearly been a noticeable number of significant sized defined benefit pension funds are actually already using implemented consulting, and a number of others are considering it. So it's alive. There are quite a number of providers in the UK of this service. Some of them have been very successful with it, and I would expect to see a number of them popping up in Ireland in the near future. In Ireland, the only providers of it that I'm aware of are investment consultants, but the original providers of it were fund managers in Holland, and in the UK there's a mixture of both investment consultants and fund managers doing it. The investment consultant model is dominant in the UK. There are more of them than fund managers doing it, but both do it. The trustee finds an enormous advantage with this service if they have governance issues, and nearly every trustee has a problem governing the investment side of their pension fund. And the nature of the problems are many and varied, but it's difficult to formulate an investment strategy as a group of trustees. But once you go to the trouble of formulating an investment strategy, it takes time, a lot of effort, a lot of detailed work if you want to put a structure of fund managers in place, or even one fund manager in place, and supervise them properly, and to understand the investment options that you have in detail so that you can implement them. And the critical things that tend to go wrong are that you can make decisions which are influenced by individual trustee behavioural traits, and you can be held up in implementing decisions or even coming to decisions. Trustee investment decision making can be very, very slow. That's the main governance problem. There are others, but that's the main governance problem that affects investment management. And what this service, if it's well done, can do for trustees is to get the trustees to focus on the very small number of issues that really constitute the core of their governance responsibilities, in a way which leaves them free to generate an investment mandate which can be taken off the table at that high level, and then be a relatively simple issue for them to govern thereafter. That's in theory. There are lots of drawbacks with implementing that, of course, from time to time, but that's what it does, and that's the value of the service. And properly assessed, many boards of trustees will find that it genuinely does deliver a significant benefit to them if they do that. Apart from the governance saving, which I think is the key driver here, there are a number of other benefits that you would look to. I mean, in principle, it should be cheaper. it should be cheaper than the combined service of the consultancy service, the investment consultancy service, and the sum of all the investment management services. If they're all packaged into one provider's service, in principle they should be able to do that cheaper. I'm not sure if that can be demonstrated. I suspect that there are cases where it wouldn't be capable of being demonstrated, but it's certainly something that the trustees should be looking very closely at and should expect to achieve if they use implemented consulting. And the other thing I suppose you could expect is that if you have the benefits of the expertise of a well-practiced investment manager or an investment consulting house, and their knowledge of investment providers, you would expect in principle that they could be able to produce a better investment performance with the quick implementation that they will have through this mechanism, and you should expect to see that coming through over time. Again, I don't think it will be very easy to demonstrate that that's the achievement in practice, and there are maybe many reasons why that's the case, but these are things that trustees should be looking carefully for, and I think they should expect those two benefits to accrue. No. In fact, one of the things that happens when you use implemented consulting is that there's a conflict of interest, which immediately pops up. That in the old model you had your investment consultant, who was the gatekeeper, who checked what the investment managers were doing and assessed their performance and assessed that they were doing their jobs as expected. So they kept the providers honest, if you like. When the consultant does the entire job as implemented consulting, or when a fund manager takes on the entire job as a fiduciary manager, that gatekeeping role has disappeared. And I think it really behoves pension funds, when they're doing this implemented consulting, what they really need to do is to acquire a very simple, straightforward, inexpensive service to oversee the service provided by the consultants. And in fact, that's why I'm involved in this business, is because I have founded an operation called Veris Consulting, along with a number of other independent consultants, in order specifically to fill that gap, to provide that service to trustees of simple oversight in a fully independent service. The core service is a maintenance service, it's an ongoing oversight role, but I mean, if it's engaged at the beginning of the process, it would also include the transition to that oversight role, transition to the implemented consulting arrangement or to the fiduciary management. But it also includes discussing with trustees and giving them the capability to make the decision in the first place as to whether implemented consulting or fiduciary management is a good step for them to take. And many of them are considering that at the moment and can do with a little bit of independent insight into that. Well, the key thing is the benefit there for them, and the benefit would be there for them if they had any kind of a complex governance arrangements that led to them being slow making decisions, or led to them focusing in their investment reviews on material that there simply isn't enough time in a pension fund board, trustee board routine to cover. That's the key organisational problem that makes this a good service in my view. And if that issue is there, then they're right for it. They need a certain scale. I mean, it probably isn't suitable for very small schemes. It doesn't have to confine itself to defined benefit pension schemes. That is the area in which this has grown, particularly because there have been funding plans and deficit reduction schemes, and the risk management associated with that. It lends itself very well to liability-driven management as a context in which this type of implemented consulting can be sold, and that's been the way it's happened. But it applies to all kinds of boards of trustees and any kind of investment board of a charity or of a corporate even, where the fund is large enough that the governance of the investments can be complex. This can be of benefit in that case. So I think the factors that the trustees need to look at are do they have that need? And secondly, is there a service that can be provided to them which would genuinely allow them to get a better investment plan together and to be satisfied that its management would be an improvement on what they have already? It's a difficult question though, and it involves an awful lot of thought before we should take the step. Many and varied, I suppose you could say. Some investment managers actually provide this service, as I mentioned already, and some of the very large houses, the big global names, are significant players in this business. Others take the view that there are other ways they can satisfy this need for the trustees and provide an intelligent suite of investment products and investment advice, and in the case of defined benefit pension schemes, a very good set of liability-driven products and assistance with actuarial planning and flight path investment program design. So some fund managers are going down that route. So they're not quite doing the implemented consulting, or they're not quite doing the fiduciary management product, but they're providing enough out of the elements of it instead, and that can be a satisfactory way for them to compete and provide good service to trustees. Others take the view that the consultants will drive this and will win some business from them. The rest of the business won't go with the consultants, and they'll continue, and they've plenty to compete for, so that's the way they view it. Others see it as damaging their business, and others see it as of prime importance, that if this is going to grow and be very successful, of prime importance for their business is that they sell to the consultants, because the consultants themselves don't manage much of the money. They use fund platforms which they hire investment managers or invest in investment managers' funds in order to achieve the investment objectives. So the investment managers need to sell themselves or their funds to the consultants or to the fiduciary manager providers. It's quite a complex chain of alternatives, but they're the various approaches that fund managers can take. Absolutely not. It's a really good question. Trustees need to be trained in either case. Now, whatever type of investment program they're using, they do not need to be trained as investment professionals. They do need to be trained to execute their investment governance functions properly, which means they need to understand what's possible with investments. They need to understand what they are being sold when they're being sold an investment program, whether it be one of these fiduciary management type programs or whether it be an investment product. They need to understand that much, and they need to understand exactly what their duties are and how to formulate an investment program for the objectives that their fund have. Quite a tall order, quite a significant amount of training involved in that for any trustee, and it is exactly the same training whether they use this program or whether they use an old-fashioned investment program. I think it's likely to be a significant product. I think it's likely to grow its market share, if you can call it that. The amount of providing that's been here in Ireland has been a little bit limited to date. I think that will grow. I think there will be more providers in Ireland in the near future. It's been quite successful in the UK. It's been reasonably successful here in Ireland to date, and I do think it'll be a grower, simply because if it is properly governed, then it's much easier to manage for investment trustees. And there's no reason, if it's properly managed and with appropriate supervision, there's no reason why it shouldn't be expected to produce as good, if not better, results more efficiently than the old way of doing things. So I think it will grow.